Hello and welcome to episode 21 of JoyConCast. I'm your host Nicholas, and this week the Nintendo Switch has been pretty busy. There's more deals for Nintendo Switch, specifically Black Friday deals, are now online and available to see. We also have an interview with Doug Bowser from Nintendo detailing the future of 3DS, as well as Switch Lite sales affecting Nintendo Switch, Joy-Con drift issues, as well as multiple Switch accounts. We also have some Super Smash Bros. Ultimate news, including a new character, patch 6.0.0 now available, as well as some more Nintendo Switch news available this week. Welcome to the JoyConCast. Let's jump right into things with yet another Nintendo Switch deal. I know for the past 2 or 3 weeks now, I've been mentioning Nintendo Switch deals, and they're far and few between usually. They're very rare. They rarely happen. But Nintendo is in the sales season, I guess. It's the season of Switch sales, and so it's pretty important. And we have another Switch sale, this time for Black Friday. Now, I think in the previous 2 episodes, I mentioned a pretty decent Switch sale. One was going for maybe $20 off, one almost $30 off the Switch. And we have yet another Switch sale, this time for Black Friday. This comes from the Target Black Friday deal. I also believe this is pretty standard across most retail stores. But this year's Nintendo Switch Black Friday deal sees a $2.99 Nintendo Switch with a free digital copy of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Now, this really isn't anything too special, especially when you consider that we've seen Nintendo Switch go for about $280 some places, and it's the V2 Switch with the improved battery life. This means that for the standard price of a Switch, you're essentially just getting a free copy of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is not a new game by any means. It released in 2017. Also, according to Wario64 on Twitter, this appears to be the old Switch, not the V2 one with the improved battery life. And it looks like this is the same SKU as last year, the same box art as last year, and the same exact deal as last year, meaning this really isn't the best deal for Nintendo Switch right now. It's okay if you want the older Nintendo Switch, but you really should aim for the red box Switch. Now, that one, of course, has the slightly enhanced chipset, which basically improves the battery life a little bit, optimizes it just a bit. And other than that, it's a pretty standard deal. This is the same one we saw last year. It's really nothing too special. It's really nothing too crazy. It's not bad if you're planning on getting a Switch. You essentially get a free copy of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I do wish instead of Mario Kart we saw Smash Bros. Or heck, even throw in Pokemon. Pokemon's coming out very soon. By the time Black Friday hits, Pokemon Sword and Shield will be available. Why not do a Pokemon Sword and a Pokemon Shield bundle, where you buy one Switch, you get Shield, you buy another, you get Sword, for $2.99. That's a brand new Switch. Plus, you get a newer game. I think that's a much better bargain. But like I said, it's decent enough, I guess. There's some other deals going around that will save you about $30 on games like Splatoon 2, Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Some of those kind of Switch hits, those Switch classics, are going for about $30, which is not bad at all. Nintendo games, much like their consoles, rarely go on sale. And so for $30, it is pretty weird that 3 years after a game comes out for the Switch is just now half off. We were talking about this last week, I think, how like PlayStation games, they can come out after Switch titles and go on sale way before them. But Nintendo's evergreen titles like Zelda and Splatoon and Mario Kart and games like that rarely see sales because they still sell relatively well. Even in 2019, going into 2020, these are games that are still going to sell really, really well. So why discount them? But Definitely keep your eyes out for some decent deals coming to Switch games. I believe Black Friday deals for Target are online, as well as maybe even like Best Buy, a couple other places. I know Target for sure. That's where some of these deals are coming from. So if you want a sneak peek or an early look at Black Friday deals, definitely check out Target. I think their Black Friday ad is available online. But that's pretty much it. Decent deal all around, but still, it's kind of disappointing that it's the same thing as last year. And even last year, it really wasn't that great of a deal. But moving forward, The Verge recently had an interview with Doug Bowser, where they talked about Nintendo Switch Lite, the future of 3DS, sharing Nintendo accounts across multiple Switches, Joy-Con drift, as well as will we see another retro console, another plug-and-play retro console like the NES Classic or the SNES Classic. And it's actually pretty interesting stuff in here. So regarding the Switch Lite, Doug Bowser said it's not only raised the sell-through for the overall family, but importantly, it did so without any negative impact on our flagship system. Nintendo Switch Lite sales have been additive to the overall Switch business. He also goes on to say that 43% of Switch Lite owners were buying the device as a second system, which I definitely believe. The Switch as it is right now, the standard flagship OG Switch, I think is great. I think it's fine for console and handheld play. But the Switch Lite, having more of a focus on handheld play, is obviously built for portability. I'm sure that it's better in the long run for, carrying it around, holding it for longer periods of time, stuff like that. And there's a lot of people who have made their day one Switch a stay-at-home Switch that just stays in the dock, and they take their Switch Lite with them on the go. I've seen this all over the internet. A lot of people are doing this, so I definitely believe that almost half of the Switch Lite owners already have a Nintendo Switch. But it's also interesting that this is in no way, shape, or form cutting into the Switch sales. So not only are a lot of people buying this as a second system, but it seems like the Switch isn't necessarily affecting the regular Switch sales. This is great. Offering a handheld-only Switch will give people an opportunity to buy a second device where they can take that one on the go and then leave their normal Switch at home. Or if they really just want to focus on portability, they really just want to focus on that handheld play, just buy the Switch Lite and use that. He also goes on to say that 57% of the consumers are new to the Switch family. So the Switch Lite is pretty much a success. It's not necessarily 50-50, but this is bringing in a lot of new consumers, a lot of new people to their ecosystem, but it's also giving people who already own a Switch another way to play. I think that a Switch that doesn't dock or connect to a TV, I think is fine. There are a lot of people who don't have the time to sit down in front of a TV and invest time in games. They'd rather play portably or play on the go or play in short bursts. However, I don't think a Nintendo Switch Pro or a Nintendo Switch XL that is meant to constantly stay docked, I don't think that would work as well. I'm sure there are some people who, just play their Switch 100% docked, 100% connected to the TV. But I think that really goes against the entire idea of the Switch. I think it could be interesting having a docked-only Switch, a handheld-only Switch, and then kind of like an in-between model. But I think what's so fascinating right now is that there is kind of an easy way to leave your games at home on your normal Switch, and then take that Switch Lite with you. And it works well. The ecosystem works. Obviously, we'll go into the multiple account issues, where Bowser says, there's nothing to talk about at this point. There is the ability to transfer data and to designate which is your primary device and which is your secondary device. And those instructions are available on Nintendo.com, but we're looking at the experiences our consumers are having, and we're always looking for opportunities to improve and enhance those experiences. So right now, as it stands, there is a way to set a Nintendo Switch as your primary device and a Switch as your secondary device. And essentially, your secondary device can play the games that your primary device downloads, but you need to connect to the internet for it to read those games, make sure it's your account, make sure it's all good, and then you can play it. Whereas your primary account doesn't need to do that. It just opens the game and you're in. There's also the case of cloud saves. So if you have Nintendo Switch Online, you get cloud saves. Now, from what I've heard, this is all kind of confusing and very frustrating. Games will automatically back up, but I don't think they will automatically upload. So they'll let me rephrase that. They'll upload to the cloud, but they won't. They'll automatically upload to the cloud, but they don't automatically download from the cloud. So there could be times where you're playing something like Luigi's Mansion 3 on your stay-at-home Switch. You grab your Switch Lite, and it can't get that save from your Switch Lite instantly. You have to go through and manually download that save. It's a very confusing process. It's by no means, from what I've seen, I've kind of looked into it myself, watching videos, looking at the instructions. It's not very simple. It's not a easy way to go about it. There is a way to go about it, but it's not the easiest way. I definitely think that the overall experience with cloud saves, backing up your data, transferring from system to system, I think that could all be easier. And if 43% of your consumers are buying the Switch Lite as a secondary device, I think that should tell Nintendo that they do need to, as Bowser says, improve and enhance the experience of uploading and downloading saves and transferring content between Switches. Personally, I think that using the Switch as both a portable and a stay-at-home console, I think it works. That's kind of the whole point of the Switch. But obviously, people are taking to the Switch Lite as a more portable means. So he says that there's nothing to talk about. There's nothing in the works, I suppose. There is an ability to do it. But he also kind of understands that, hey, consumers are using the Switch Lite as a secondary device. We could improve it and streamline the experience. So hopefully that is, hopefully that's something that we see in the future. I think that's kind of the biggest problem about having two Nintendo Switch systems right now. And that's why I don't think a stay-at-home Switch could work. For those who just want to sit on the couch and play Switch games on the TV, sure, that could be fine. But for those that want that Switch to stay at home and have that Switch that they can throw in their book bag, I think the overall experience needs to be streamlined before that can happen. I don't think there's an ecosystem or a proper seamless interaction between the devices that takes place to where you can easily access your saves from both consoles. I think the whole thing is kind of a mess right now. But hopefully that gets fixed in the future. We'll have to see what Nintendo does moving forward. Obviously, with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Scarlet on their way this holiday season, I'm curious if Nintendo will answer or fire back with a piece of hardware within the next year or so, and if that's the case, what that will be like, and if so, if it is a new piece of hardware, will that interact with your current Switch or Switch Lite in an easier way? I guess only time will tell. But moving on, Doug Bowser was also questioned about the future of Nintendo 3DS. And he says, "We continue to look at the 3DS family, both hardware and games, as a strong entry point for some consumers. And we're seeing that. As long as consumer demand is there, we'll continue to provide both hardware and software on that front." Now, last week I discussed how 3DS games were going to be making an appearance on Nintendo Switch, and there were a ton of great IPs on 3DS. that I think could make an appearance on Switch. However, now Bowser seems to be saying that the 3DS itself, if the demand is there, is going to be kept alive. And he even goes on to say, we will continue to support 3DS this holiday and into 2020. I don't even think there are any 3DS games announced or confirmed or on the way, at least not any major ones. I'm also not sure how much of a consumer demand there is for the 3DS now that the Switch Lite exists. I feel like that's a much better, especially at $200, that's a much better deal or bargain or experience to buy into going into 2020 than the 3DS. Even if the 3DS gets a couple games next year, you do have an entire library full of games. The 3DS has a fantastic library of games, but that's not necessarily an entry console or necessarily a console that's on any sort of lifeline right now. It's kind of on its deathbed, slowly dying, if not already dead, as we see major games like Fire Emblem, Pokemon, Animal Crossing all make their way to Switch. I feel like this is just PR talk. I don't think anyone at Nintendo wants to say the 3DS is dead yet. I don't know how many 3DS systems are still selling as of right now, but I guess there's enough that they don't want to risk it to, start to slow down at all. So I feel like this is just PR talk, just saying that the 3DS is alive for the sake of the public, so that people still feel like the 3DS is a deal in 2019 going into 2020. It's obvious and clear that the Switch is the focus here, as it should be. I think having a console system and a handheld system sold on store shelves at the same time has been something that's worked out for Nintendo in the past. But now we're seeing a console hybrid and a handheld system on the store shelves at the same time, and I think that's even better for Nintendo. The Switch opens up the doors for what can be possible on a Nintendo system, and the 3DS just doesn't have the power, the technology, or the support that the Switch has right now. It's very weird to me why they don't just say, we're moving on, the focus is on Switch, and anyone who's questioning or wondering about buying a 3DS should just look at the Switch Lite. I don't know, it's just such a weird thing to continue to play the death of the 3DS off. I mean, the 3DS is almost 9 years, going on to 10 years pretty soon. And it's time to just let it go, I think. There's not really any games coming out. There's not really any support for it. Shift all of your focus to Nintendo Switch and go from there. But that's not what Bowser's saying. He doesn't think it's a dead platform. He says time will tell when it dies, that they're going to continue to support it. So I don't know how. I feel, again, they're just saying that, but it's still weird to me. Why not just focus your sales on Switch? Either way, moving on. Doug Bowser was also questioned about the plague, if you will, of Joy-Con drift. Now, for the record, just to put this out there, I own 8 pairs of Joy-Con. So 4 sets, 8 Joy-Con. I have my day 1 Joy-Con that I got with my Switch. I got the reverse Joy-Con, so I have the red and blue and the blue and red. I got a custom pair from Colorware, and I recently just picked up the purple and orange set that were available earlier in October. And I use my Joy-Con a lot, obviously, especially in handheld and tabletop mode. But even when playing on the TV, there are certain games where I'll just slide off the Joy-Con and play with those. I have never had Joy-Con drift. Not to say that it isn't an issue or that it isn't a problem. Not to say that it doesn't, affect certain people. I can't really speak too much when it comes to Joy-Con drift, because I haven't had that issue. I have never had any buttons or my control sticks or anything stop working. There is a problem that I have where sometimes the Joy-Con are on the Nintendo Switch as the Switch is in the dock, and I'll undock the Switch, but my Joy-Con are dead. That's the only problem I've had, and I don't know why. I've had that problem with my gold Joy-Con, the custom ones I have, as well as the purple and orange ones I have, and I don't know why. I thought that the Joy-Con just charge on the Switch, but I don't know, and it's in sleep mode too. Sometimes it's, maybe running a piece of software, but it's in sleep mode. That's the only problem I've had, but even that hasn't really been too big of an issue. But when it comes to Joy-Con drift, like I said, I can't speak too much on the issue. I've never had that happen. I've never had any sort of Joy-Con drift. Obviously, not to say that it doesn't affect people, but I personally can't speak too much on my experience with it because I've had none. But in question, replying to the question of Joy-Con drift, Doug Bowser says, our goal is always to create quality products, and products that ensure customers are having a great experience. We are continuously looking at ways to improve our products as we go forward, but in the end, we want the consumers to have a great experience. And if in any case they're not having that experience, we encourage them to contact our customer support groups, and we'll do our best to help them through that. That is how we've been handling our consumers over the last few months as issues like this have arisen, and we believe that consumers are finding their way back to great gameplay experiences. Now, there was a lawsuit against Nintendo regarding the Joy-Con drift, and in response, Nintendo has offered free replacements, I believe, for any Joy-Con. So if you are having any Joy-Con problems, especially the drift, whether they're day one Joy-Con or brand new, I believe, at least in the United States, you can contact Nintendo's customer support, and they should hook you up with a replacement pair of Joy-Con. Definitely contact customer support. I'm sure they'll help you through this. Like I said, I haven't had an experience with the Joy-Con drift. I have not had an experience with contacting customer support. But from what I've read within the past few months, Nintendo's been pretty open with Joy-Con problems. And if you contact customer support, I'm sure they'll let you send in your Joy-Con. I've even read that there's a pretty quick turnaround. For Joy-Con, there's very little wait. So, I mean, again, it's kind of like PR talk. He's not just gonna openly admit that, yeah, our Joy-Cons are broke. Whatever. But I think what he says is it's true. I mean, Nintendo does make usually quality products over the years. Most of their consoles and controllers have stood the test of time. They've held up exceptionally well, and it's odd to me that Joy-Con are having the issues that they are. But like he says, if you contact customer support, I'm sure they'll help you out. I'm sure you can get a new pair of Joy-Con. Hopefully this is something that does get fixed, though. It is pretty concerning when the Switch Lite literally has Joy-Con built into it that cannot be detached, that are built with similar parts and a similar design as Joy-Con. If those have problems, you have to send your entire Switch Lite in, and now you're without a console, period. So it is pretty concerning, but hopefully Nintendo continues to help people through their problems, and in the background fix their Joy-Cons for future releases. But that's pretty much that on Joy-Con drift. And then last but not least, there was talk about another tiny plug-and-play retro console, so something like the NES Mini, the SNES Mini, or the classic systems. I mean, Doug Bowser says, our focus right now is absolutely on our dedicated platforms, such as Nintendo Switch Lite and our flagship Nintendo Switch. I think with the gameplay experiences you saw with some of our classic consoles that we launched a few years ago, they're now available on Nintendo Switch Online, and this is where our focus will be. And I have the SNES Mini or the SNES Classic, and I've played it occasionally. But most of those games are now available on Switch with Nintendo Switch Online. And that's not a whole separate console that you have to have plugged in. That's not a whole nother HDMI that you have to plug in with another dedicated controller. I can play those same games on my Switch as, modern day AAA games with ease. I do think that's where Nintendo's focus should be. I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I think there's more money to be made in the classic systems, just because those retail usually for what, like $60 to $80, and you're gonna have people who buy those just out of nostalgia's sake or whatever the case may be. But I do think putting your focus on Nintendo Switch right now is the best, much like 3DS. Put your focus where the moneymaker is. And if Nintendo really wants Nintendo Switch Online to succeed, with how bad it is right now, and I do have to admit, Nintendo Switch Online is pretty rough, I do think it's worth continuing to invest in it and making it better, and that includes putting your retro games on it. I don't like how long it took for the NES game library on Switch to get filled up. It took like almost a year from when the service was announced for us to get like a proper decent library of NES games on Switch. I do like how SNES games kind of dropped all at once, just like that. But yeah, I think it's much better to focus on Switch right now. And he even says that that's where their focus is. Putting classic retro games on NSO, that's their focus. And I think that's the best bet. It is weird that he says that their focus right now is on the dedicated platforms like the Switch. But earlier he says that 3DS is alive and well. Kind of contradicting that. But I mean, as it should be, the focus should be on Switch right now. Whether it's bringing 3DS games or retro games or new games or whatever, the focus should be entirely on Switch. And I don't know, I think the retro consoles, the plug-and-play consoles are nice for nostalgia's sake for those who grew up with those consoles, and for collectors who want, who want them. But for most people, I think it's best to just put those experiences in the most easy to access location, and right now that's Nintendo Switch. So I 100% agree with that. I would much rather have N64 games on my Nintendo Switch that I can take with me anywhere, by the way, than have a tiny plug-and-play console that stays connected to my TV 24/7. So yeah, I don't think the retro consoles are by any means a bad idea, but I do appreciate Nintendo moving forward with Nintendo Switch Online as their focus and bringing retro games to that. Moving forward, some quick little updates, some quick little news, kind of just a little flash segment right here. Nintendo Switch Pro Controller is now getting native support in Android 10. So, much like the PS4 and Xbox controllers, you can now pair your Nintendo Switch Pro Controller to your Android device in Android 10 and use it with games like Call of Duty, Fortnite, Minecraft, whatever supports controller play. And this is interesting because just the previous week, we talked about the Razer Juggernaut, or not Juggernaut, the Razer Jungle Cats, I think they're called, the detachable Joy-Con-like mobile controllers. So it's kind of funny that those are available for Android devices, and they're kind of like Joy-Cons. And then Nintendo this week allows you to connect the Pro Controller to mobile devices. It is kind of funny. I don't know if they're in relation at all, but in case you do play games on mobile and you want a proper controller for your mobile device, you now have one extra controller that can pair with your phone. Also, in other news, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has now sold over 15.7 million copies and is now the best-selling video game, or best-selling fighting video game of all time. Much deserved. We'll talk about some Smash updates here in a second. But much deserved. I think this is one of the. I mean, it's kind of, you've heard it before. It's just kind of cool. How many different fighters are available in this game? How much love and care has been put into it? It's a treat to play, and it's fun. I really enjoy this game. I mean, even the roster. Obviously, we'll talk. Terry has now joined. The roster, but I mean, you have a ton of variety when it comes to the roster, when it comes to the stages, when it comes to the music. This is like the fighting video game, I think, to play. It has so much value. That like it'd be crazy if this didn't make it up there with some of the other best-selling video games, or best-selling fighting video games, I should say. Especially when you compare it to Smash Bros. For Wii U, which only sold 5.3 million copies. And then Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the Wii sold 13.3 million copies. It's definitely up there. And I think as time goes on, as more fighters are added, as more content's added to the game, obviously it's only going to go up from there. So, such a great game. Moving forward with Smash Bros., Patch 6.0 is now available, and if you have the Fighter Pass, you now have access to Terry Bogard of SNK. There was a 45-minute Smash Bros. Presentation on Wednesday that went through in much detail everything about Terry. I'll be honest, I didn't watch it. I was at work. I didn't have time to skim through it. But if you want to watch that, check it out. There was apparently a lot of detail regarding Terry in Smash Bros. But with the patch 6.0, there is some new information, some new stuff added to the game. There's a new King of Fighters stage. There's several new Mii costumes. Nintendo has also updated some online stuff, so there's the ability for hosts to change the rules without shutting down the arena. There's an option to add random battlefield and Omega form maps in the stage. And with the Terry comes with a new stage and 50 soundtracks. 50 songs. 50 songs. That's crazy. That's a lot. That is so much. But yeah, patch 6.0 is out now. The Fighter Pass is obviously available. And I believe, is this actually the last character? Because we had Joker. Hold on, I gotta check. I have Smash open right now. Let me check. So we have Joker, who is the first. Then we have the hero. Then we have... No, this is the fourth. So there is still one more character. And I don't know where these leaks or rumors are coming from, but I've been reading on the internet that Doom Guy, or Doom Slayer, from Doom, is coming to Switch. I don't know where people are reading this. I don't know where this is coming from. But I've wanted Doom Guy in Smash since I played Doom 2016. So if this happens, I am 100% down for it. I am 100% here for it. I want Doom Guy in Smash so bad. And there is still one more character slot. There might be a possibility. And with Bethesda being kind of nice with the Nintendo, Doom is on Switch now. I think Doom Guy is iconic. I think he's memorable. I think he could work. I mean, we got so many other random characters in this game. Doom Guy, I don't think by any means would be too weird or too hard to implement in Smash Bros. And with the Game Awards coming up, the Game Awards 2019 are in December. We saw Joker announced at the Game Awards. for Smash last year, right? Will we see Doomguy this year? Will we see Doomguy this year? I'm excited. I want Doomguy in Smash so bad. But yeah, Doomguy I would love to have. I love so much to have in Smash Bros. But either way, I think that's it about Smash Bros. Haven't been playing a lot of Smash Bros as of late. But there's a lot of new content, a lot of new updates to it, so I'm definitely going to get back into it. But one thing also I wanted to speak about, because this is pretty recent, the Pokemon Company is apparently holding off review copies of Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield due to leaks. Now, if you haven't been on the internet within the past week or so, even just the past few days, there have been Pokemon leaks everywhere. And from Pokemon that are being cut out of the Pokédex to new Galar forms to just brand new Pokemon in general, other just random leaks. I personally have not been looking at the leaks. I want to go into this game blind. I've been even trying to stay away from official information that Nintendo's been announcing, because I really do want to go into these games fresh without knowing too much. One of the biggest problems I've had with Pokemon games pretty much since like maybe X and Y was that Nintendo just shared way too much, or Game Freak shared way too much about the games prior to their launch, that, evolutions, when you saw your Pokemon evolve, you already knew what they were going to evolve into. You already knew what Pokemon to expect. You already knew a lot about the game, and they weren't fun because there wasn't really anything new to explore. So I'm really trying to stay away from Pokemon leaks. I'm trying so hard to stay away from any possible speculation, rumors, leaks, anything like that, data mines, all of that. So I'm not going to report on any of the leaks. In fact, Pokemon comes out next week. It already comes out next week. Oh my gosh. I think I have to go preload the games. I didn't realize it was that close to launch. But by this time next week, I'll be playing Pokemon. I'll have it in my possession, and I want to go into it fresh. I want to go into it without seeing too much. But it is crazy that Nintendo's holding off review copies due to this, because the damage has already been done. Like, everything's already leaked. And even Nintendo, who hates when their stuff gets leaked, which is understandable, has been trying to pull stuff off the internet and kind of clean the slate here. But it's already done. Once it's on the internet, it stays on the internet. So the damage is done, but I guess they're trying to prohibit anything else from getting leaked online. It is kind of a terrible decision to withhold reviews from being done. There's still a crazy amount of people who are going to buy this game just because it's Pokemon and who don't care about reviews, like myself. But I'm sure there are some consumers out there that want a genuine review on the game before they buy it, and that won't happen. They're not going to get. Obviously, review copies I'm sure will come out, or reviewers will get their hands on the game on the 15th. But I don't know if enough time will be available for them to get a proper review out for people to judge whether or not they should get the game. It's just a weird incident, and like I said, everything's already out there. Everything's already leaked. I guess they're trying to prohibit any other future damage that can be done, but that's Pokemon. Yeah, like I said, I'm staying away from leaks. I'm staying away from all of that. So I'm kind of glad that hopefully this prohibits any future spoilers. But at the same time, people who are just doing their job are going to get affected insanely by this decision. So hopefully it goes over well in the end. And last but not least, since last week I talked about Luigi's Mansion 3, but only for a short bit, because I had literally like an hour or two of playtime in the game by the time I could talk about it. I've spent almost 7-8 hours playing Luigi's Mansion 3 now. I've still have, I would say, maybe another 2 or 3 hours of gameplay left. I'm very, very, very close to the end, I think. I'm very close to the end, and I'll hopefully get around to beating it this weekend. I wanted to play it last night, but I just didn't get enough time. But yeah, I've got about 7-8 hours of playtime in Luigi's Mansion 3, and I can say that this game, and I've said this last week, but I'll kind of reinforce that this is one of the best 3DS games, one of the best Switch games. This is up there with Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey and Fire Emblem Three Houses. I think this is like top 5 Switch games, and the reason is it's good. It's simple. It's pretty minimalistic, and it's straightforward. You know, I was reading reviews or reading what people were saying about Death Stranding, how like 5-10 hours in, it still feels like you're kind of at the beginning, and it feels like a very slow burn game. And then you look at Luigi's Mansion, where I'm almost 10 hours into the game, and I'm going to complete it by 10 hours, I'm pretty sure. And whether you think that's not enough time or not, yeah, that's up to you. But for me, I think that's fine. Like 10 hours, and you also have some online stuff going on. You also have the King Boos you can find, the gems you can look for, that'll increase playtime. Like, I think that's fine. And there is apparently DLC being added to the game. I think mostly for online, but still, I think and the experience itself is so solid. Like, every room, you go through the game and you're trying to find elevator buttons so that you can, go through all the floors and save Mario, save your Toad, save Princess Peach. And each floor is so creative. It's fun. Like, you have some floors that are like based off a desert. They're based off like Egypt. You have another floor that is all about movies, and you have a director ghost, and he's filming movies and whatnot. You have another room that you fight a ghost like in this water tub kind of thing, and you have to swim through the level in a way. And each floor is so creative and different and just fun from the previous one. And it's interesting, like, it keeps things fresh, it keeps things unique, it keeps them really delightful. The dialogue is so fun. Like, it doesn't feel too dialogue heavy, and it feels just very Nintendo-like. It feels very just fun, and it's I love when Luigi interacts with the ghost. It's funny how spooked he gets, but also how much, like how happy he is when he sucks them up and he completes them, or you watch him talk to Egad, or whenever he saves someone. Like, the little moments like that are just fun, and the boss fights themselves are fun. I think in this game the combat is very much, it's the best it's ever been. I think the combat is so fun in this game. I love being able there's an ability where you can suck them up and then like slam them against other ghosts. You can slam them on the floor, and it does make it a little easier to fight the ghosts. So if you want an extra challenge, you could prohibit from doing that. But I liked it because it's fun. It's just fun watching Luigi smack this ghost across the room, or smacking ghosts into each other. It's fun, and I don't know, it's just, the combat's like really well structured, and it's the best it's ever been. The floors are unique. They're very fun to play through and find the different hidden items, and to just explore. The one thing I will say, maybe one of the problems with the game, and it's not really a big one, I guess, there are times where a lot of the boss fights feel very similar in the way that they act, in what you have to do to fight them. A lot of the ghosts act the same. And there are a couple, there was one floor in particular, there's kind of like this garden room where there's a planter ghost, and he's, there's flowers, and there's a big tree in the floor. And there was a pretty unique way that you have to go about fighting him that I really liked. But then there are others where it's just kind of straightforward. You flash them with your bulb, and then you just suck them up, and that's kind of it. There are some creative ones, like the director floor, or the movie floor. You have to make a movie. I won't try to spoil too much, but you make a movie, and it's kind of interesting what you have to do before you end the level. There's another one where you're fighting in water, and you're actually swimming on a rubber ducky with another ghost on a rubber ducky, and you have to like push them into a wall of spikes. That one was frustrating, but it's a lot of fun. But some of the early ones, and just other ones kind of sprinkled in between, do feel very similar in the way that they act and in the way that you have to fight them. But I think overall, it's fun. It's a fun game. The puzzles are pretty straightforward. There are a couple that did get me. I'll be honest. There's a few where I had to look up a guide, and then I was like, it was in my face the whole time. Like the puzzles aren't too hard. If you just give it some time, you'll kind of figure out what you need to do. But if you do end up looking up a guide, it'll be very, very obvious once you figure out what you need to do. But I think the puzzles are fun. They add an extra element to the game. And all in all, it is a blast. It is very, very fun. I like it much more than Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Like I said, I think the combat is much, much better. It's improved. The dialogue is super fun. The music and the soundtrack is very, very, very creepy and very spooky as well. I really like it. And overall, it's a fun game. It's really good. And there really is never a slow moment in the game. It keeps a very nice pace. I think that's one problem that a lot of other games have, because they try to be open world or experimental, or they try to do too much with the plot. This game has a pretty structured plot. Like there's really never any slow moment. There's never a dull moment. There's never, too many times where you're wondering, okay, where do I go? What do I do? It's pretty, it's not just point A to point B. I mean, there are rooms you can explore. There's different items you can find. There's plenty of money to collect, which, while I'm talking about that, I think is kind of meh. There aren't too many items you can buy. There's a couple like cool ones, but I wish the money went towards something more. There's a lot of money that you collect in this game, but I don't know, there's just not like a lot to buy. I don't know, it's just such a weird thing. But either way, like I said, there's money to collect, there's rooms to explore, but it's just fun. It's well done. It's a pretty straightforward video game, and it's a great experience. It's a great time. It's pretty innocent. It doesn't take too long to complete. I would say, like I did say earlier, it is definitely holding up with Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey and Fire Emblem. I would say it's definitely up there with some of the kind of classic Switch games. I guess it's up there. It's really good. It's beautiful. Luigi, how could I forget about Luigi? I love Luigi. He is probably the best part about this game. It's so weird. It's so like different and funky, but Luigi adds a whole new element to the game. There are times where you can use him to help Luigi fight a boss. And there are times where you kind of have to use Luigi to fight a boss. And it does make it a little easier, but it's also just fun. Like, it's cool having kind of having a Luigi clone. It's just weird and different. But he also allows for more places to explore. There's different gates or spikes or places that Luigi can't get through. But Luigi, since he's made out of this gooey kind of stuff, he can walk through different areas of the hotel that Luigi can't reach, and it allows for more puzzles. It allows for to get those hidden items. It allows for more money. It allows for just a whole new unique approach to the game. I think it's very cool having like a second player in the game that you can use. I think he's probably the best part about the game because of how much gameplay or how much of an experience Luigi actually adds to the game. I think he's, like I said, the best part about the game. He's so much fun to play as. He's definitely like the star of this game. He's the real leader. He's the real brother of the Mario Brothers. He's so cool. There are some things Luigi can't do. First off, water. He can't walk through water or touch it. He will like dissolve, I guess, if he's near water. And there are some areas where you go through pipes or gates or different areas like that. And there is water, and you have to be careful because it, will kill Luigi. He also can't open doors. So you're pretty much stuck in the room with Luigi. And if Luigi opens a door, then Luigi shrinks and goes back into Luigi's, I guess the back part has like a little section where Luigi kind of lives or whatever. But it's cool to have like that sidekick in the game. There are moments where, like I said, you can use them to fight a particular boss, or you both have to pull on strain to open up a gate, or you need Luigi to step on this lever so that Luigi can go through this area, or you need Luigi to turn the pipe so that the water stops so Luigi can go through and open the door for Luigi. There's tons of cool different puzzles and areas like that adds to the overall experience of the game. And like I said, it's really not that hard. The puzzles aren't that hard to figure out. Some of the areas with Luigi are just fun that it adds so much more to the game. I think Luigi's definitely like the star of the game, and he's definitely the best addition. But yeah, overall, I love this game. I think it's a perfect single player game. It really is. It's not too long. There isn't slow moments or slow burn or areas where you're just wondering where to go. There isn't too big of a world to explore. Everything's kind of condensed into floors, and it just feels fun to play. It really is just a fun game to play. I think it holds up with Super Mario Odyssey in terms of just a great single player experience. So that's that. That's kind of my review on Luigi's Mansion 3. It is a must buy for Switch, and I would highly recommend it. 10 out of 10. I think it's up there. It's definitely going to be talked about as much as Super Mario Odyssey and even Breath of the Wild. I think it's just fun. It's a fun single-player game, so I would definitely recommend it. I think that's pretty much all the time I have this week. I think that covers the ground for all the Switch news and games this past week. Like I said, next week probably won't talk too much about Pokemon just because I won't have enough time to actually play the game before I have to record the episode. So, bummer. But I'll talk about it the week after. I'll probably have a whole dedicated episode to Pokemon within the next week or two. So yeah. With that said, thank you for listening. I appreciate any and all support. And with that said, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.